Alright, what's up guys? I'm sure you can tell because, this isn't a gameplay video because I'm not in game. I'm sitting here on the tavern by myself, and the title and the thumbnail and everything else that's going to give you a hint. This is not a gameplay video. So just warning right now, there will be no gameplay. You're pretty much just going to be staring at me going back and forth between perks and skills for Barb and other classes. So if you're looking for gameplay, click off this video. I have gameplay videos up. Go check that one out. However, if you're down to just sit here and chill and listen to me talk about this game, and honestly, mostly complain, then, you're here for a good time. Alright, with that being said, this video is going to be about what exactly is Buffball and why is it so OP? Because I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, like, what's so broken about it, and how do you nerf it? Or, just why is it so dumb, basically, right? And for a really TLDR explanation would be, you send one character in that's very, very buffed up, and by the time the other two that buffed said character get there, the fight's over usually. If you've watched my stream or any of my videos, I'm sure you can tell most of the time I literally go in buffed up, I 1v3, and that's just the end of the fight. And that's pretty much how every Buffball comp works. That's why Barbarian is so good with it, because obviously, like let's say if you were gonna run Fighter or you're gonna run another physical damage class like Rogue or Bard, like why don't they do it as well as Barb does? Well, the reason being is because Barb has all the tools he needs to insta-kill people. What is the one thing Barb struggles to do? Barb struggles to cover distance effectively and get onto people. Excuse me. Barb has an issue of he can be kited very, very easily. Obviously, yes, you do have Rage, and you do have things like Francisca's. However, if you pop Rage and you run at people, like let's say, for example, you pop Rage at a Ranger, Rage does make you squishier. Like you see here, it does. It reduces your defense by 20%. That removes 20% of your physical damage reduction. So, for example, I'm at 52.6. I would go to 32.6, and that's a very, very big amount to lose. So if I pop Rage and I run at a Ranger, even if I dodge some of his arrows, more often than not, I'm going to take a lot of damage trying to get to him. However, if I have a Bard buffing me and a Cleric buffing me with protection or a Wizard haste invising me, it is a lot easier for me to cover that distance, and it is a lot safer. Obviously, if I have a Wizard haste invis, they don't see me coming, so they can't shoot me. If I have a Bard buff, I have extra protections, and I'm faster with move speed, and I have more stats, which give me more HP. Also more move speed. A Cleric, you have a Cleric pocket healing you. You have a Cleric giving you protection, so you're taking less damage. There are a lot of reasons why. However, let's say you take all those things away. Like, let's say you're like, no Bard or no Wizard. Let's say, honestly, because, you're going to have one support. Like, realistically, you're not going to never have a support. You're not going to have no Bard, Cleric, or Wizard on your team. You're going to have one of them. But, like, so, for example, let's say you just have a Cleric, right? Because I feel like Cleric's probably the more commonly played out of the three. Let's say you just have a Cleric. Yes, sure, you can still cover that distance. However, you're not as fast, and your Cleric's going to have to waste many more heals. Also, for example, if they're pushing, and, like, obviously, because it's not like you're going to be 2v1 pushing a Ranger. Like, that's not the scenario. More often than not, you're going to be pushing into a team. They have a front line that's trying to stop you, whether that be another fight, or be a fighter, or another Barb, a Cleric, whatever it may be. Or you're pushing into a team that does a ton of damage. The Cleric not only has to focus on healing you, because if you're running in, either the Cleric has to follow you if he wants to consistently heal you and consistently protection or buff you, or he initially buffs you and sends you in, and then you're on your own pretty much, and he's not in range to heal you. So either they can focus all their damage into you, and your Cleric has to try to out-heal them, or they can split damage into your Cleric and you, so then the Cleric has to focus on healing himself, or he's going to die, or healing you and allowing himself to die, which generally is not the best play. However, once again, like I said, if you take a Bard or a Wizard into account, it adds a lot more to the situation. And the thing about Barb is, Barb has so much damage, you really don't need other sources of damage. And that's not to say, like, Bard, Cleric, and Wizard have no damage, because obviously that's incorrect. Wizard's one of, if not the highest damage class in the game. Cleric's Holy Strikes hit very hard. Their melees hit very hard. Bard as well. Bard's a very good combat character. He has very high damage, very high agi, very high strength, with rapier mastery, crossbows, reinforced instruments, throwing drums. Like, Bard has very good damage. The thing is, it's just like, you normally don't need it. if you're running against another team equally as geared as you playing Buffball as well, then yeah, obviously you're probably going to see it. But for the most part, Buffball, how it works is you get into a fight and you'll wipe the team before they ever really mount a good defense against you. So it's your teammates don't ever have a chance to show what they're capable of in a fight other than just buffing you. And that's why Buffball's so good. Buffball pretty much removes the capabilities of playing from the enemy team. You basically go in, say you have no counterplay to what I'm about to do to you, and that's it. Like I could pull up some examples while I'm trying to talk. Let's just see if I can like show you exactly what I mean. Actually, yeah, here, let me see if I can find one from last night when I was doing this. And I will try to talk about a bit how I believe this could be nerfed, because the issue with this is it's very, very hard to actually nerf it, because there are so many things that are broken about it that nerfing just one thing won't do it, right? Like, there isn't just one thing about Buffball that you can nerf, because obviously, like I said, you know, because since it's not just like Bard or Cleric or Wizard, it's a combination of them all. You'd have to nerf all three of them to really change it. Because let's say you just nerf Wizard, right? If you just nerf Wizard, then they just play Bard Cleric. If you just nerf Bard they play Cleric Wizard. That's the thing, is there's so many combinations they can play with this that makes it incredibly dumb. All right, let me pop this up right here on the screen. Just pull this. Okay. Like, this right here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, I think. All right, let me hit play here. So you see, we know there's a team fighting in here. I'm telling them to buff me up. I break the door down. I pop up invis, and there's two, like, geared barb and a geared fighter, and I just swing my war maul twice. They're instantly dead. This guy has no idea what's coming for him. Instantly dead. And even that this ranger even hits me a couple times. Look how little damage he did to me. And this guy is a fully geared ranger. Like, he is very, very geared. I just insta-wipe people just like that. And I have an even better example if I can try to find it. It's somewhere in here. I'm not exactly sure where it is. It's not this one. Sorry, I know this is not exactly very professional, but, you know, it is what it is. I'm sure you guys don't mind. There's one very good example where we kill a ranger cleric team. Honestly, maybe it's from a different VOD. I really can't even remember. I thought it was from this one, but who knows? I thought it was my first run, honestly. Let me check. Is it my first run? Starting to think it wasn't my first run. No. Okay. Anyways, you guys saw there a very good example of what I'm talking about. Like, that wasn't even like a great one because they pretty much couldn't do anything, invis or not. But I ran in, swung 2 times, killed 2 people, swung a 3rd time, killed a 3rd person, and that is pretty much generally like how the comp goes. You just give the enemy team so little counterplay. There's really not much they can do, like, or even attempt to. And it's just so ridiculous because no other character can effectively do that. And one really big issue with it that the game has, it's not an issue with the comp, it's more of an issue with the game itself, is audio is really, really bad when it comes to Buffball. Not Buffball. When it comes to invis, audio is very, very bad. I'm sure there's been many, many cases where a lot of you have you've been like invised on by either a rogue or a barbarian or whatever it may be, and they popped up right beside you and you had absolutely no audio of it. I think it's like that's a common occurrence. It's where the sound just doesn't work when people go invis. Sometimes the sound literally just won't work. And that's just a fact of life. It's pretty consistently too. All right, here, I actually did find the thing I was talking about because I was looking. I'm sorry if I've felt distracted. I actually really wanted to find this one. Okay, so here you see we know there's a team in here, right? We know there's a team in the middle room in here. I break the door down and I'm telling them to buff me. I get sent invis. They see me go invis and look at this cleric. I just pop up, swing, he's dead. They're already playing. Look, my team, my wizard has been shot once, and they're already playing down a cleric with absolutely no counterplay there. that no matter what, even when they saw me go invis, they had no hope of ever saving their cleric there. And that's just how this comp goes. It's just completely ridiculous. And like I said, there's several reasons. However, the fact is, because a lot of people think, like, you know, you look at it and say, oh, well, you need to nerf Barb. Well, the problem is, outside of Buffball, Barb isn't very good. There's no other comp in 3s that you really see people run Barb with and that actually works. Most of the times, if people are running Barb outside of Buffball, it's not very good. That's the truth. It just isn't. Because Barb, without being haste invised or bard songed or, you know, cleric pocketed, doesn't have a lot of tools. You're forced to run rage, which automatically makes you weaker because you don't need the strength. So if for those that don't know, stats have soft caps. What that means is after you hit the soft cap, you get diminishing returns on the values that the stat gives you. So you see strength as it increases HP and physical power. Before you're at 50 strength, every point you get will give you, I think it's 2 to 2.5 HP, and it will give you 1% physical power. After you hit 50 strength, it will only give you 1 HP and 0.5 physical power. So for example, let's say you're running rage and increase your strength by 15. If you're above that 50 strength threshold, effectively this is only giving you 7.5 strength because you're only getting half the effectiveness of it. And it's reducing your defense by 20%. So pretty much you are forced to run rage just for the movement speed alone because otherwise you have no way of covering distance. This is basically fighter sprint, but in a much, much worse because there's a lot more drawbacks and there's not as much upside. You're not quite as fast, and you're only getting, like I said, you're only getting 7.5 strength, isn't as good. These other these other perks, I mean, like, sure, you can run these, but like I said, you're forced to run rage. So it's like, then do you want to run reckless to try to help you deal with tanky characters even more than you already do? You can run Warcry, then you have like really nothing to stop people. So it's really, really hard for Barbs to get on top of targets without like a haste invis or a speed buff from Bard or whatever it may be. And like I said, Barb isn't good outside of Buffball. So the problem isn't Barbarian. The problem is Barbarian in Buffball. And the thing is, like I said, Barb is the character that does it best. Does it work with other characters? Yes, it does. Like, if you're buffballing a fighter, will it still work? Yes. Will it work as good? No, not even close. The problem is, even when, like, let's say, for example, let's say you get an initial engage on, like, a certain target, right? The best part about Barb is, Barb doesn't need to eliminate any character in a fight for him to keep playing. Barb eliminates the best character to kill for a team. Like, let's say for a fighter, for example. If you haste invis a fighter in, generally speaking, you have to kill a wizard if there is one, or like a warlock. Because if you don't, fighter's gonna die to them very, very easily. Barb doesn't have that issue. Barb doesn't die to any character in this game easily at all right now. There is not a single character that sees a barbarian's like, oh yeah, I deal with that. Fighter, on the other hand, if you're trying to buffball that, or rogue, or bard, whatever it may be, they have a lot of characters they can't deal with. So they need to try to insta-kill them coming out of haste invis. Barb doesn't have that. Barb can always eliminate the highest priority target for the team fight, which is generally speaking like going to be a cleric. Like, I've had fights where I can literally leave the wizard alive to the last person. It's not an issue because he doesn't do any damage to me, which is another amazing thing Barb has. This is one thing that is definitely broken about Barb itself and not completely irrelevant to Buffball. Although this isn't necessarily just Barb, it's kind of just the way the game works, is you see my stats here. I have 50 strength, 38 agility, 187 HP, and I have 52.6 physical damage reduction and 48.7 magical. This is ridiculous. And what this right here means, for example, is if I get buffed by a bard, I'm going to be 63% physical damage reduction and about 60% magical damage reduction. So I will have almost 200 HP with 60% resistances in both. The amount of effective HP that people have to go through to actually kill me at that range is just beyond insane. And like I said, having 50 strength and 38 agility, I swing my war maul. Keep in mind, this is a 62 base damage weapon with 30% armor penetration. And I'm swinging this thing because of all this agility as fast as a fighter can swing an arming sword. I'm hitting headshots for 175 with this thing. Body shots like 111, 120. It's beyond crazy. And you know, generally the fall off of that would be it's hard to get on top of people to actually hit them. Bring Buffball along, You don't have that issue. Buffball eliminates all the issues you have. So now, on to, other than me just complaining about how broken it is, how do you fix it? Well, like I've said, there's a lot of issues with it. And there's a lot of, like, you know, because this isn't like a new comp that's been broken, right? Like, it's not like Buffball Barb is a new thing that's only been broken for the past 2 weeks. If you're an old player, or if, you know, you've followed the game for a long time, Buffball has been broken since playtest 1. So it's been broken for, unironically, years. Ever since this game first started getting played and people started playing Buffball, it's been incredibly OP because it's always done the same thing. You send somebody in and they automatically pretty much kill somebody and you start the fight off 3v2. Like, that is just inherently going to be broken. You know, some people say, for example, oh, remove Wizard's ability to haste invis targets. Bam, it would be fixed. No, that's not the case. Because there's a lot of people that don't even play Wizard with Buffball, and it's still crazy. For example, Wallpurger's kid, if you follow leaderboards, he was the rank 1 overall killer for PvP leaderboards. He doesn't even run Wizard. He runs Cleric Bard, which, like I said, some would say is arguably just as good. I mean, I don't necessarily know whether or not it is. I think both have merits. But that's the thing. That right there shows that if you nerf just one, it's not going to automatically, like, oh, we nerfed Wizard can't haste invis, the comp's balanced now. No, it's not. That's the problem, is you have to nerf all 3 characters in a way that they can't do this. Don't get me wrong. One big thing, yeah, making it so Wizard can't haste invis other targets, I think that's a good change. Do I think that's the only change that can happen? No. But that is a fantastic change for the game. It would make the game significantly better. Then once again, Cleric, I mean, it's not like Cleric can particularly be nerfed. All Cleric really does is keeps people alive. Like, so the main thing comes down to here is Bard and Wizard. It's like, how do you nerf them in a way that makes Buffball not as good? Because having it as a viable comp is fine. Like, you know, you don't want to completely remove a comp from the game. I mean, if they did, I wouldn't be mad. I'm sure a lot of other people wouldn't be because how broken it's been. But it's always nice to have a bunch of different viable comps you can play, right? So the question, like I said, goes back to is how do you nerf this comp to the point where it's still playable, or not even completely ignoring it? How do you nerf this comp in a way that makes it not as good, that makes it worse, that makes it so this comp isn't the most broken comp in the game? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know. Like, I have some ideas, but in terms of a definitive way to nerf this, I don't know. And I think I think it's a hard thing to do. When there's a comp that is so versatile where you can use any combination of 3 different support characters to do it, and I say support character like Wizard is one. Wizard's not even a support character. They're a damage character with 2 support spells. But when there's a comp that's so versatile that you can use any combination of 3 characters to buff one person, and you know, because you see, that's like that thing is Barb is the common denominator, but so it comes down to, like, you know, so maybe you just nerf Barb. If you just put Barb in the ground, then Buffball won't be as good. Which, to be fair, I think is possible. Like I've said this entire time, Barb's bad outside of Buffball. However, if you put Barb far enough in the ground, then yeah, they won't be able to Buffball with them. That's true. And I'm going to be honest with you. I do think one change needs to happen is this needs to lose some armor pen. Because before, there was a counter to it. The counter to Barbarian being Buffballed was Fighter because Barb couldn't kill the Fighter. So if you held them in front of you and didn't let them pass, it was a winnable fight because the Barb got stuck on the Fighter and you could deal with their team that way. However, with War Maul at 30% armor pen being introduced, that no longer became the case. Now, Barb counters Fighter, and it's like not even remotely close. Now, Fighter is fighting an uphill battle trying to beat a Barb, and you need legit perfect circumstances to even beat them. Like, you have to hold a doorway on them, and another problem with that is this is where, you know, team play comes in, is if you have a Wizard with a Barb, Fighter can't hold the door, because I'm sure you guys have all seen this, but the Lightning Rod Barb comp, where you chain lightning off your Barbarian into their team, if a Fighter holds a door on a Barbarian and they do that, the Fighter's dead, just outright. Because chain lightning does way too much damage, you're not going to out heal it, Fighter's going to take a ton of damage from it, and that's just it. However, for example, if Warmaul lost its armor pin, Fighter wouldn't have to do that because you could fight a Warmaul straight up because it wouldn't be shredding all of your armor. the one thing Fighter's good at is having a ton of damage reduction on the physical side and being able to take those physical fights. They don't have to like worry about it. So they don't have to just hold the doorway. They could, like, you know, pull it out into the open, fight wherever they want, and not have to worry about constantly getting chain lightning. So one thing I do think that needs to happen is they do need to, if not completely, they have to remove some of the armor pin on this weapon. Because since this weapon has been buffed, it has been the de facto best barb weapon. You absolutely have to bring this. Your secondary can be swapped out. I've seen people run Felling Axe, I've seen people run Viking Sword, I've seen people run Quarterstaff. Those are all fine and dandy, but you absolutely have to bring a War Maul. This weapon is just too versatile for pretty much every situation. The only time it's bad is if you are swinging it in a genuine doorway where you cannot swing your weapon, and even then, generally speaking, you can use your RMB or your alternate attack to still hit and still do good damage. So, that's like I said. Do you put Barb in the ground to nerf Buffball that way? Do you try to nerf the support classes in a way that makes them worse but doesn't remove them from the game? Because, for example, if you nerfed Haste Invis on Wizard, where they couldn't Haste Invis other targets, would that remove Wizard from the game? No, they'd still be a good character. They just wouldn't be a support character anymore, which would be fine. They would be their own character. However, but it's a different story if you look at like Bard or Cleric. If you nerf their spells and songs so much to where they're like not even good anymore, it's like you're pretty much just remove the character from the game. And then it's just going to get to a meta where probably people are running like 3 damage characters. It's going to be who can one-shot who first, which I don't think is very healthy. Also, it eliminates an entire class of play, which isn't very good. I do think I've heard some stuff. I do think there's some ideas floating around as to how exactly to nerf this. And I mean, like I said, it's not that I have genuinely no idea how they're going to do it. I think that there are some ways, however, I don't know if they'd ever actually go for it. One way I think they could nerf this, for example, would be, and like I said, I have no idea whether or not they're going to actually do this because it would definitely make the game unfun for a lot of players, is you basically implement something of like a role queue, so where you can't play 2 support characters per team. So, you know, like how if you play Overwatch or like a MOBA or any of that, like you queue for a role like top, bottom, mid, Overwatch, DPS, support, tank. It would be like that, so you can have 2 support characters or something. Or maybe it's just support, so, you know, you can run whatever you want, but you can't run 2 support characters, for example. And to be honest, would that fix it? Yeah, that would fix a lot of the issues. However, then you run into the issue of people being upset they can't play what they want because you're limiting them, which is, I think, definitely an issue. Would it be better for the game overall? Absolutely. Do I think people wouldn't like it? Also, absolutely. Me personally, like, let's say I want to play with 2 of my friends and they want to play their 2 characters and I want to play my character, but, like, you know, like, let's say, for example, we all want to play Cleric. Like, we want to go triple Cleric, but we can't because we can't play more than 1 support character, you know? That's definitely, you know, an issue with, like, that's an issue with that. However, speaking, I genuinely don't understand how else they could really nerf Buffball to make it not as good as it currently is. I do think in the end, I think they're gonna have to address this, because before it wasn't as much of an issue because, for example, no one was really running it. Like, sure, some top teams were, right, and some really good players were running it, but it wasn't super common. You'd run into it, like, you know, every now and then. We've got to the point now where basically every single person is running this comp in a high roller level that want to win, and you're running into 1 to 2 Buffball comps per lobby. And it's so oppressive that if you run anything else, you basically don't have a chance at beating them. That's, like, I mean, you see, like, I'm playing Barb. I don't even want to play Barb. Like, I'm doing it because I have to, but I'd rather play Fighter. As all you know, Fighter is my main class. I much more enjoy Fighter than Barbarian. However, I want to play the game and I want to have a chance to win, so I have no choice but to play Barbarian. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've been playing this for the past 3 or 4 days, and I haven't had a single situation where I felt that it was, like, out of my control. When I'm playing Fighter, a lot of the times I feel like I'm very conscientious of my positioning, you know, what I'm doing, when I'm engaging, when I need to back up. On Barb, I feel like I don't have to worry about any of that. I literally just say, buff me, buff me, buff me. I run in, and the fight's over. Like, I have never felt so unscared on a class before in my life. The only time I ever, like, you know, have an issue with fighting someone is if I'm running into another geared Buffball team. And it's literally just, I hope they don't get haste invis on us before we can haste invis on them. All right, I think that about sums it up for the video. I know I said, I was gonna come up with like some solutions. However, it's kind of hard to do. I do think, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. One issue that definitely needs to be addressed is stats. Because, for example, I should not have these stats. There should be no reason I'm able to hit 50 strength, 38 agility with like 50-50 resistances, right? Like, that's completely insane. So, do they need to lower stats? Maybe. Like, inherent stats on items are definitely broken. Like, I have, what, 5 free strength here, 3 free agi here. And, like, that stuff adds up. And, like, I'm getting +2 all, so that's adding a lot. Something else. This is actually something very important that I didn't mention. Is 100%, I do think plus all attributes needs to be removed from the game. It is too good of a stat. It is too all-encompassing. So, for example, I'm just going to tell you guys this. For example, let's say I only have riveted gloves and heavy low legs. Let's say this is my only source of actual strength, and they're both purple. These are blue. Like, so let's say I have, let's say I have these on, right? Let's say these are my only source of actual strength stats. If you roll just plus all attributes on all your other gear, so +1, +1, +1, +1, +2, +2, +1, +2, +1. Let's say you roll it on all this, and I think maybe +2 on your war roll as well. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not doing the math right now. But if you roll all attributes on all your gear, you don't need a single dedicated strength roll to hit 50 strength. Like, I have it right now, but I don't have plus all. But if you just have plus all on all your gear, you will hit 50 strength, which is insane. Because it's not only giving you strength, it's also giving you agility. That's why you see my stats are so ridiculous. And that is just completely, like, beyond crazy. That you don't have to specifically invest a single point into the stat, and you're still hitting the soft cap for it at 50. You are still getting 20 points from it just from inherent stats alone, and, like, additional stats from going plus all. But alright, that pretty much sums up my video for now. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. And if you enjoyed, which is, I mean, honestly, this was pretty much me just ranting about the comp and explaining why it's so broken. But yeah, so if you enjoyed, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I always try to respond to the comments down below. If you have any opinions on this, you want to tell me I'm stupid and I should stop ranting, make more gameplay videos, I might, eventually. Anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.